Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and I'm joined today by my corrupted co-host, the diabolical Darren.
I am really looking forward to this one again, as always, and really like this film, so it should be a lot of fun.
And the film that we're going to be talking about today is quite appropriate because I think me and Darren actually feel like and probably look like zombies at the moment, actually. I don't think either one of us slept too good last night. The film that we're going to be focusing on today is 1979's Zombie Flesh Eaters, directed by the one and only Lucio Fulci. A great zombie film, and Darren, I believe this is actually one of your all-time favourites?
I wouldn't say it's one of my all-time favourites. It's definitely up there in terms of zombie films. I do really like Haste by the Cemetery, City of the Living Dead, and The Beyond a little bit more, but I would class this film better than the film it's trying, to imitate, which would be Dawn of the Dead. And again, don't shoot me for that. But yeah, I remember this film a lot. I watched it back in the 1990s on some fifth generation, dupe VHS, along with Cannibal Holocaust and that. And from what I remember, going back and watching it fairly recently, it's a film that's gone way up in my estimation.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was probably like a 6 out of 10, I would class it as a good solid 8 out of 10 now. I really like it for what it is. So yeah, and that don't usually happen to me a lot.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, of course, this film was actually... Dawn of the Dead obviously had the title of Zombie, and this film was actually marketed, wasn't it, as Zombie 2, as a sequel to Dawn of the Dead to try and cash in on the success of that movie. Obviously, without Lucio Fulci's knowledge.
That's right, yeah. And the story to that is, Argento actually had a lot, as people listening to this will know, with Dawn of the Dead. And he actually put a lawsuit in against this film. I think it was Variety. Variety was the name of the production company. And they actually sided with the Lucio Fulci film, saying that Zombie, you cannot really copyright the name because it's such, a common name. And I know that started the feud between Fulci and Zombie thereafter.
Yeah. And yeah, what I really like with this movie actually as well, not to compare it with Dawn of the Dead, I just absolutely love the look of the zombies in this film.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I really like the setting because I believe the scriptwriter, Dardano Sacchietti, he actually based his script on various old school zombie films. We're talking prior to Night of the Living Dead. That he wanted to bring the zombie genre back to its Caribbean and voodoo roots.
That's right. I think Fulci was a big fan of the film I Walked with a Zombie.
Yeah.
The Val Lewton film.
Yeah.
And they wanted to bring it more into the likes of voodooism and that. And didn't the original idea come from a Tex Willer comic?
I'm not sure, but I know that, like you said, Walked with a Zombie was inspiration. Voodoo Island as well in 1957. And there was also a film from, I think it was 1936, called The Walking Dead, not to be confused with the 2010 series. But yeah, this was basically, a film that, making callbacks to the zombie films of yesteryear, if you will. I love the island setting in this film.
Yeah, definitely. It's... when they get to the Caribbean, it takes a little bit of a while, but the film is, even at the start, which we'll touch on in a bit, the actual start, your bright sunlight, I think I've mentioned it in other podcasts, I think it really works for this film.
Yeah, I agree. What's the name of the island again?
The Matul.
Matul, that's it.
Yeah, I laugh every time I hear that.
Because I believe it was actually filmed partly in the Dominican Republic, which I think is actually the largest area in the Caribbean by population. So I think I absolutely love the setting to this film. And I agree, it is one of them films that's kind of leisurely paced, if you will. But it goes, in the final act, it goes from being good to great, in my opinion.
Right, yeah.
The last half an hour of the movie is just great. When the climax of the film is just excellent. And, of course, we've got to talk about the music.
Yes. Fabio Frizzi, and I think it was Giorgio Tucci.
Yeah, yeah.
Both wrote the music, and yeah, I think it's quite funny because when they go to the Caribbean, you've got this like synthesizer type theme, and it seems like quite out of place with the film. But and I always sort of wonder, it works really well, but it just seems to me to be out of place. But the actual zombie theme, I think, is one of the best ever in Italian film history. It's just so sets the atmosphere, and everything, the pace of the film, and I think we get that in the opening credits, and it just sets the film up really well.
Yeah, I absolutely love the music. I love the score, which was actually released away from the film as well. And it just complements the film so perfectly, especially in that climatic battle near the end with the zombies.
Yeah.
It's just used to great effect. Now, with this film, Lucio Fulci, this was really his kind of big international breakthrough. This is a film that, in a way, even though he directed films prior, this was like his first big international success. And then obviously later we had, some classics like you mentioned, like The Beyond and House by the Cemetery, and of course City of the Living Dead. But this is a film that really kind of pushed him, elevated him further.
Well, did you know that he wasn't due to direct? The first director of this film was going to be Enzo G. Castellari, who directed a lot of like action films.
Yeah.
However, he refused, and he mentioned that his, friend, why didn't get hold of Lucio Fulci, because Fulci was coming back off a film called The Psychic, which didn't do very well. It's a film I really like a lot.
Yeah.
So he put his name forward, and Fulci, he'd done a few giallo in the past, but he'd never really done a straight-out horror film.
Yeah.
And the rest is history, as they say, because then he went on to make, for me, 3 of the best zombie films ever made.
Yeah. I mean, I think his first film, this is a guy that had obviously done, westerns and comedies, prior to becoming a well-renowned horror director. I think the first film that he actually directed that gained significant notoriety is a really good giallo, and that was Don't Torture a Duckling.
Yeah.
In 1972.
I think that started out as just a normal run-of-the-mill thriller, but he put, some really sadistic touches in there. And the same goes for his other giallo as well he made afterwards, which was Lizard in a Woman's Skin.
Yeah, and there was one prior, wasn't there? There was one actually in 1969 called One on Top of the Other. I think its alternate title is Perversion Story.
That's right, and that's one I've never seen, which I've always been interested in seeing. I don't think it's got a UK release.
No.
It's sort of held me back there a bit.
No, I haven't actually seen it myself, actually, but that was his very first giallo, and Zombie Flesh Eaters is certainly a film that, this is the film. He's often known as the Godfather of Gore, which is basically the same title that Herschel Gordon Lewis has. Fulci is one of them directors, isn't he? That's he certainly does have an ardent fan base, but while he was alive, he probably didn't get as much recognition as some of the other directors out there.
No, that's right, and he was well known on set for being pretty much a misogynist. He had some real sort of bad temper issues.
Yeah,
and reports coming back from most of his films was you either got on well with him, loved him, or you hated him. There was no in between.
Yeah, it's I just love the fact that this film does set itself apart from so many other zombie films. I personally, I do love Dawn of the Dead. I know you don't. But what I love about this film is I think this film does things that are better than Dawn of the Dead in certain aspects. For one, I know you'll agree with me here. The zombies just look awesome in this film.
Yeah,
I think there's some great makeup effects.
Yeah, again, that was done exactly by chance and by budgetary, because they didn't have a big budget. Basically, the guy, I think it's Gennaro De Rossi, he done a lot of the effects with clay, and it just really works well for the film. It was a cheaper way of doing it, obviously, and and I think he had letters for years later asking him, how he did the effects for this film.
There's a lot. As I said, I love the fact that it goes back to the Caribbean roots, and that's what sets it apart from so many other zombie films out there. And obviously it had a lot of controversy when it was released. It was basically a video nasty. And, in the years that followed, it's a film that's gained on a big cult following, hasn't it? This is very much a cult horror movie now.
Yeah, again, I don't think Fulci had the respect, when he was alive. I don't think he realised he had this big fan base.
Yeah.
But, now people, for the first time, again, Blu-ray versions of these films and going back a little bit earlier, DVD versions. And I think he's, rightly so. He's right up there with Argento, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, certainly. This is one of my favourite films of his. May possibly be my favourite, I'm not sure. House by the Cemetery would certainly be a close contender for me. And also The Beyond. Now, let's just talk about some of the scenes in that and the film itself. As I said, yeah, great score. Love the opening score right from how it starts the movie off. Ian McCulloch, who I can't remember what project he got attention from, but that's why he was cast. Now, Ian McCulloch, I actually saw an interview with him not too long back. It was actually included on the Blu-ray of this movie. And when this came out, he hadn't seen the film until 10 years before this came out. So basically, the film had been out for about 20 years before he'd even watched it.
Yeah, well, he pleasantly surprised as well at how good it was.
Yeah, he was very surprised. He actually thought it was a good horror movie. Now, quickly to get back to the zombies, the zombie effects and that. There was a lot of people saying that they were using the same, I don't know if you've ever read this, but they were using the same actor for a lot of the zombies, where apparently there was a lot of brothers in this film who looked very similar. So there was a lot of zombies that looked similar to each other.
I think they were all circus entertainers.
Okay.
From, obviously, maybe over in the Caribbean. And yeah, they basically, brothers and all them, and they all got them. So yeah, that's probably why they do look similar.
Yeah. Now, one of the notable scenes for me in this film, it's in the final act of the movie, and it's actually the zombie, probably the best looking zombie of the film, in my opinion. It's the zombie that's often used for the promotional art, the poster. It's a good scene, actually. It's a really good scene. It's where they're kind of resting and they realise that they're in a cemetery.
Yeah. It's that very iconic poster image in the USA. I think it was on the USA poster, and you're on about the one where the girl
he slowly comes out of the grave, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's so atmospheric. I think that, for the time, that was done really well. I think the only film I can remember that sort of done that was Night of the Living Dead, maybe.
He's slowly rising. I mean, I'm like, she's standing there and I'm like, run, for God's sake. Run.
Yeah.
But that's a staple of all of these films. It's a convention that we've all become accustomed to. But it's a really slow rise up. I mean, she stood there for ages, just like quivering. And that's the thing. All of the women in this film do that.
Yeah.
They just stand there waiting for these really... I mean, a snail would probably outpace a lot of these zombies.
But don't you find that the slow zombies make it more... For me, it makes it more scarier. I don't know why, but it just does.
I've always found the new wave to be scary. Like the ones that... don't get me wrong, the whole idea of a zombie in itself is scary to me. The Walking Dead feeding on the flesh of the living is a scary concept. But I've also done new wave zombie films, which, some people don't truly classify as like 28 Days Later and reckon that. The running kind I always found scarier because it's like, am I going to be able to outrun it?
Oh, see, that has the total opposite effect on me. I don't really, apart from Nightmare City, I do like that film, but I just don't find them scary when they're running for some reason. I don't know why. It's
a great sequence anyway. It's a great sequence. I mean, like I say, it's just kind of like, I mean, she could have probably made a cup of tea and then ran away. She had enough time to, but yeah.
I like the shot where they grab Tisa Farrow-Ann's hair as well, just prior to that scene.
Prior to that, yeah.
Because we get like a big building up of that scene where, like you say, it takes forever in some parts because she's looking over and all that. But the actual throat, slash or that effect is so effective.
Oh, the bite, where he bites.
Yeah. And then we'll mention a bit later that she does come back in the film a bit
Yeah.
later on as well.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the standout segments, and obviously because
Yeah, for sure.
obviously proved to be so popular and effective that obviously that zombie is very often used in the promotional art. It's an awesome looking zombie, and they realise it's a cemetery, and then of course the scene after that is just awesome, where they're all slowly come out the graves.
Yeah,
And it's just the music, it's the score that really accompanies that scene. It's just great. We know, that it's really going to go down now. And then, of course, the character, I can't remember the character's name, actually. He's actually shooting the zombie, and I'm like, come on, just go for the head.
Yeah.
Just, it's almost like he's never seen Night of the Living Dead before, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But and also another standout segment, obviously. Now, this is, I'd say that and the other scene, there's actually another scene as well. There's like 3 scenes I always think of when I think of zombie flesh eaters. And the other one, of course, is the eyeball sequence.
Yes, absolutely. Probably Fulci's finest, I would say his finest swan song sort of gore scene moment. It's had, I know he did the one in City of the Living Dead where they regurgitate all her organs up, but I think this is actually better than that, if I'm honest. This would be the one that he will be remembered for.
It's it's really a hardcore moment, isn't it? The splinter in the eye, and you can really kind of feel it. It's really the build up, we get the POV of her going towards this wood splinter, and then we see it from the side angle, and and I tell you what, after that, I mean, I love the moment. Alright, love's probably the wrong word to use, but the moment where they go in and they actually see her corpse being fed on by the zombies.
That's right, yeah. And yeah. Because I think they're biting on her arm or something, her arms. They took her arm off. I think she's brilliant, I just got to mention the name of the actress who played her part. It was Olga Kalatos.
Okay, yeah.
She went on and done a film, Murder Rock, in 1984 with Fulci as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's used enough in the film. I think she's one of the standouts along with Richard Johnson.
Okay.
I'm not the biggest fan of Tisa Farrow. What do you think of her?
Tisa Farrow, that's the one that's actually getting it on with Ian McCulloch, isn't it? And she says, "Don't bring up my mother in this" or something. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't rate her.
No, she's very wooden.
I don't rate her. That's something I was going to get to, actually. No, she's the rest of the car. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't. We've said this 9 million times before. You don't watch these films for the good performances. Movies like this are about the atmosphere and the gore. But she, her acting isn't good. Now, I don't know if that's because much was lost in translation with the dubbing.
Possibly, yeah, possibly. Because I don't think any of them. I'm not sure. Did Richard Johnson dub his own character? I would have to check on that. But it can be, for people, watching him for the first time or wherever, or not used to this type of cinema, it can be a bit off-putting, I would say.
Yeah, some of the dubbing isn't great and that, but again, that's kind of something that we've kind of become accustomed to, with a lot of these movies. So yeah, she's a bit very kind of the line delivery, again, I don't know if that's really down to the dubbing and all that. I mean, that moment where they're kind of getting it on, he says, "What is it? Are you goody two shoes?" and that she's blaming him.
That's
and then she was I can't remember what he says now, but she's something like, "Oh, don't say that don't bring my mother into it." It really is kind of unintentionally comedic. But one of the other segments in the film, of course, now this could actually be the number one segment. This is up there with the eyeball sequence. Where else are you going to see a zombie fight a shark?
Yeah, and the first time, I don't know about you, but the first time I saw that scene, I was just gobsmacked. I was thinking, am I really seeing this? And everything about this scene works perfectly. The underground zombie makeup, that holds up even to this day. You've got this zombie fighting a shark. I think he's biting into the shark.
Yeah.
And the actual way the zombies swim in and all, it's just worked really well.
Yeah.
Really well.
Nowadays, of course, this was long before CG. Nowadays, it'd all be CG'd. It'd be a
That's
CG
right, yeah,
shark, and it'd even probably be possibly a CG man down there or whatever. But there was no CG at the time, and they didn't have the budget for animatronics or anything like that. So they actually used a real shark, and it's a tiger shark, which is actually one of the most dangerous shark species on the planet. Tiger sharks are renowned for being killers, and the shark's trainer, I think his name was Ramon Bravo, so he was actually used as the zombie for that sequence.
That's right. And with the shark, I don't know if you've noticed, if you look closely, they took quite a lot of his teeth out.
Oh, no, I didn't, no.
Yeah, they took a lot of his teeth out, and they actually sedated the shark as well.
I knew that. I knew they basically doped the shark up with sedatives and that. But no, I didn't actually notice about the teeth and that. But, I mean, just incredible. I mean, that whole sequence. As I say, nowadays it'd be CG and whatnot. And I did read that as well, that the first zombie we get in the film is that big bold one, the large man.
Yeah.
Who attacks the harbour patrol. And from what I remember reading, he actually went into, in full zombie makeup, I think he actually went into a bar during filming, covered with fake blood and all that over his face, and nobody even really noticed. And even the bartender never even looked twice at him. He just walked in there as a zombie. And I think they were kind of used to punk styles in those days. They were used to like people wearing all kinds of outrageous clothes and whatnot, that nobody even paid attention to this big fat zombie walking into this bar.
I would imagine, New York City at the time, you could walk around doing anything. But that's another good thing I want to touch upon, is the actual setting of New York City in the film. I think those opening shots of the Hudson River, and you get the Brooklyn Bridge in the background, when the big fat zombie actually gets shot, goes into the water, you see the Brooklyn Bridge in the background. I think all that's done fantastically. I really do.
I love the ending, because
and they actually stole the shots as well. They didn't actually pay any permits for any of those shots.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, the ending, when obviously the zombies have taken over.
Oh yeah,
they obviously think they're going to safety and stuff, and then we find out it's a worldwide, nationwide. I love that scene, and again, it plays the score at the end of the movie that really accompanies it really well, where they're just shuffling along the. Is it the Golden Gate Bridge?
I think it's the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh, the Brooklyn Bridge. Sorry, the Brooklyn Bridge.
There is actually. In the script, there was like an alternative ending to that scene. I don't know if you want to go through it now, or should we go through it again later?
We'll go through it in a bit, yeah.
I got a couple of things written down on that.
Quickly say that as well, there was kind of like a gimmick. Apparently, before this film was released, it was shown in trailers that bath bags were actually handed out to theatre moviegoers.
That's right, yeah. The famous Alan Jones, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He's a UK reviewer. He actually does have one of them, and I think it's the only one known that's survived, I think.
Yeah. I've just looked into it, actually. Like a lot of Italian horror films, apparently half the cast spoke English and the other half Italian. And, there were basically the actors speaking a number of different languages and that. And it's not 100% synchronised. With the dubbing, so maybe that was kind of like that kind of added to some of the bad performances in that, if you will. But yeah, it was basically half Italian, half English. And there's actually a line in this film, isn't there, that is quite similar, kind of, if you will, just not as effective. To Dawn of the Dead, where the guy actually says, what is it again? He says now, when the earth spits out the dead, they'll come back to feed on the blood of the living.
Yeah, something. Yeah, almost to those effects.
Yeah.
There's quite a few lines actually, thinking about it, in this film. You've got the line at the end as well, when you've got the guy, he's like the radio announcer, and he's like, they're coming in to get me, and he goes, like that. And that's quite a famous line from a film.
Yeah.
But the one you just mentioned there, is very much like Dawn of the Dead.
It is like, Dawn of the Dead, I absolutely love that line. It is actually one of my favourite taglines to any horror movie. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. I think that's a great tagline.
I will say, yeah, even though I'm lukewarm on Dawn of the Dead, I will say that tagline is brilliant.
Yeah.
It
But
really
with Zombie
is.
Flesh Eaters, yeah, when he says like feed on the blood of the living, it makes it sound like they're vampires almost. Not
Yeah,
feed on
yeah.
the flesh of the living, but feed on the blood of the living. It's like, no, they're zombies, not vampires.
It's like the film's got like a real mystery element as well because we're never really told the reason. It's touched upon that
Voodoo.
it may be voodoo, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's touched upon as well that the doctor may even have something to do with it.
Mm.
But we never find out, and I think that works better for the film.
Yeah, because he's there actually trying to kind of like cure, isn't he? He's trying there to help. But yeah, it's like you say, even though, yeah, we hear the word voodoo mentioned, and obviously it's clearly voodoo, but we never actually see where the origins come from. We don't
That's
actually
right, yeah.
see anyone performing these voodoo rituals and that, if you will. I mean, I think there's another great shot actually. I think it's when there's a woman in bed and she says about what does she say now? She says something about her brother, seeing her brother or something, and it cuts to this shot of the zombie all alone walking through the street. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure what she says now. I'm trying to think. But yeah, some of the scenes of the slow moving zombies walking across the town, and do you remember the shot with the crab as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah, making a little kind of Alfred Hitchcock cameo.
I think that the crab walking across the sand
Yeah, yeah.
is fantastic, and I can't tell you why I love that scene, but it just sets up the whole atmosphere of the island.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking of cameos, obviously Fulci did one early on in the film where he's like a newspaper editor,
Yeah, that's right.
and he always done like an authoritative position as his cameos.
Yeah.
He either plays a policeman or something like that. But yeah, that's another Hitchcock nod.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that crab because you can't really miss it, can you? It kind of it
I think
walks
it's a
along in front of
fantastic scene.
in front of the camera. There's a little pervin moment in the film actually that makes me laugh. It's where the woman, her name is escaping me, but she's the woman that ends up going down into the water and attacked by the zombie. And Lucio Fulci clearly focuses on her putting her stuff on, and obviously she's topless, isn't she?
Yeah,
And she's like putting it between her legs and stuff, and you've got Ian McCulloch's character sitting there looking and all that. The funny thing is, her boyfriend, he's too busy eating. He's the one not even looking. Ian McCulloch, who's kind of like with this woman, I mean, they were kind of getting it on. He's kind of like perving over it. You can tell Lucio Fulci's using the whole kind of sexuality angle here. Her putting that stuff on, but her own boyfriend, he's too busy eating his food. He's not even perving after his own girlfriend.
It's Retta Gay was her name. And it's funny enough, there's a story to do with the scuba diving scene. She couldn't really scuba dive.
Okay.
And then Fulci, took umbrage to this, and he started effing and jeffing at her, saying, I expect, you to come onto this film set and do what you, prepared to do and all that. So apparently, Fulci or a member of the crew just chucked her in the river.
Okay.
And of course, she had trouble then, swimming. So Al Cliver, the guy who plays a boyfriend in the film, he had to jump in, and it all become a bit of a mess because as he jumped in to save her, then the life preserver was chucked in and hit him on the head.
All right.
And it all became a bit of a mess, like. But he really didn't like this Rita Gay. Fulci did not like her one bit.
Okay.
And he was very much, like I mentioned earlier, it's well known, the whole cast there, he did not like women at all.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. I mean, why the hell did she go back down there? She was like, I'm going back down. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I think
there's a frigging shark. Why? I never understood that. I mean, honestly, she's risking her life and limb for to go down and find something or whatever. I just thought that was kind of crazy. I mean, I get it. At the end of the day, it's in the script and whatever. But yeah, she comes up and there's a shark and all that, but then she decides to go back down there. It just sounds a
And
little
why
bit
would you?
risky to me.
Why would you scuba dive naked as well? Which I find a bit.
Well, come on, it was for the male audience members out there, wasn't it? At the end of the day, come on, it's not.
I'm jesting.
Yeah, it's not Italian horror, is it? Without some aspect of nudity.
Well, I wasn't complaining, but I will.
Yeah. Now, did you actually know that the scriptwriter Sacchetti actually took his name off the credits?
Yeah, and apparently it had something to do. There's a couple of reasons why they thought that was. I'm bordering along the lines of I think it was to do with the tax reason. But his wife wrote the film with him, didn't she?
Yeah. Well, I actually read that it was actually his father's death during pre-production, and as a result of his loss, he felt a bit uncomfortable putting his name on the credits for a film about dead people coming back to life when his father had just died.
Yeah, there's two reasons given. The one is that one, and the other one is the tax reasons. But I tend to side on the tax reasons because I don't really think that his death of his father would really, it maybe did, but I know his wife was called Elisa Briganti, and she'd done a lot of writing with him. They would sit down and they would riff on ideas and come up with stuff.
Well, apparently, oh, sorry.
Go on, sorry. No, go on.
I was going to say, apparently as well, just quickly before I forget, that just quickly getting back to the ending, that apparently there were going to be some shots of the zombies coming out of the water, but they never actually made it into the final edit. I think it was the production crew that actually said that. There were some shots of zombies. You're actually going to see them come out of the water in that final scene, but they never made the final cut. That would have been pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that would have been more along the lines of the Blind Dead films. That would have been very cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that, like a lot of the gore scenes were sort of stripped down. And I don't mean that by the fact that they were shot, because they weren't, but they were sort of stripped down from the script.
Yeah.
Because even Fulci, I think, said that this is going to look really over the top sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think they've done it well. They stripped it down really well.
Well, a lot of the there were cuts made. Obviously, this was a video nasty. It's kind of easy to see why. It was at a time when like anything. There was a lot of video nasties, weren't there? There was a lot of films to be quickly banned, and this was one of many. And getting back to that scene in the cemetery, I actually love, again, a great kind of practical effect is where he decapitates a zombie. I mean, he gets the, is it like the crucifix? Or he gets something, doesn't he? He actually chops the zombie's head off, crushes the head.
Yeah, Ian McCulloch's character, I think it's like a cross. He goes all badass in the film, doesn't he, then after that?
Yeah.
Pretty much they all do then, I think. But, some great gore scenes. It takes about an hour, I think, to really start to get into all the gore scenes. We obviously got that start, with the zombie on the boat and all that, and then it takes a good half hour. Then we're basically going into character development and all that. And I don't think that to me doesn't affect the film's pacing or anything.
No.
And I think it's a good slow build. Then. Yeah,
it is. It is a leisurely paced film, certainly. Yeah, the last half an hour of the movie, the final act, is where it really goes up a gear. Which is great, and it has one of the best, if not my personal favourite, or certainly up there, climaxes from any zombie film. The climatic battle in they're in the kind of the medical facility, aren't they? The hospital, and just the battle against the zombies, and they're obviously throwing what is it? Is it kerosene? What is it they're throwing, like firebombs?
Firebombs, yeah, basically. I think some of the stunt work in that was fantastic. You've got one of the zombies' arms on fire. You've got, I think, half of an old zombie's on fire at one stage. And I know they did, do a lot of effects with mirrors and stuff. But, yeah, it really is. It works well. I think the whole tension as well of the film, where you've got the slow-moving zombies, they're barricading them into this hospital.
Yeah.
I think it's like a makeshift hospital, and I think that don't get picked on a lot with this film. There's actually a lot of good suspense in this film.
Yeah, I just love the whole climax. I love that score that just accompanies it. It's just cool. It's just a real kind of like a level of intensity. I mean, it's annoying when you see these female characters who just stood there and they're literally there to just scream. And you've got these slow zombies shuffling towards them. Like, do something, run. You can outpace that zombie, but as I said, it's become a staple, isn't it? It's become a staple of the subgenre and that. But I love that moment as well. There's an awesome shot of a zombie, actually. I think when they're coming through, I think it's through like the windows, and there's one that's you see like his eyeball. Do you know what I mean? And he ends up getting shot.
Yeah. And then chaos ensues, doesn't it? Because I think 2 of the dead bodies they have in the actual hospital begin to rise.
Yeah.
So they got all these zombies coming in from everywhere, and then just chaos ensues. And it's such a just a great scene,
Yeah.
Them trying to get away.
Yeah, I mean, this film is also a lot shorter than Dawn of the Dead. I know you said that you're not one of Dawn of the Dead's biggest fans. Dawn of the Dead's, obviously, depending on the cut that you watch, Dawn of the Dead's a pretty long film, isn't it? Well over 2 hours.
Yeah, and again with Dawn of the Dead, I don't want to go off topic too much, but I can watch the Argento cut. I prefer the Argento cut because I like the Goblin score.
Yeah.
But to me, see, it's not a patch on this. This film does everything better than that film. And again, I know that's not a popular opinion, but I just think Dawn of the Dead is more of a satire, and whereas this is more, like you say, white zombie type. Even Night of the Living Dead, this resembles more.
Well, Night of the Living Dead, as I've probably said about 2 million times in that, Night of the Living Dead is still my all-time favourite zombie film. The whole zombie genre as we know it really exists because of that, because of George A. Romero. That film was such an influence, such an important part of horror cinema.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Zombie Flesh Eaters is up there as one of my personal favourite zombie films. I do really like it. It's one of them movies that I'm not sure if I'd say it's like great from start to finish, but it has enough moments. It has enough moments in there, enough highlights of the film that really push it to being a really good zombie film. I think
you've got 2 or 3 elements here. You've got everyone will resort back to the actual zombie with the shark scene, and you've got the eye splinter scene and all that. But I think it's a lot more than that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, the climax at the end as well. I really, as I said before, I really like the setting as well. I just love the Caribbean setting and that, which you don't really see too often from because obviously with the likes of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn, they're set in more kind of contemporary settings, especially Dawn, and Maul and that. Obviously, that movie essentially is kind of a satire. It makes a hell of a lot of commentary about consumerism. But with Zombie Flesh Eaters, it's taking zombies back to their roots, if you will. With the likes of voodoo in it. I think it's got some great makeup effects. I think the zombies look awesome, and I think there's only actually, because the zombies move very, very slow in this, and all of the zombies, interestingly enough, have their arms by the sides as well.
Yeah,
as they're walking, shuffling. Well. And I think there's only 3 or 4 zombies in the entire movie that have their eyes open as well. They've all got their eyes closed, pretty much.
It very much reminds me. There's a film that come out a year after this called Burial Ground Nights of Terror. Have you seen that one?
No, I don't believe I have.
Oh, it's got basically you would love it. It's got like this little boy about 11 or 12 is played by this bloke who's like 40, like a dwarf.
Yeah.
And for comedy elements alone, is fantastic. But it does remind me, the actual look of the zombies with the clay face and all that, it rips off this film. And that's one you're going to have to really see. I'd love to see your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I'll have to put it on the watch list. I think I've only got about 15 million films on that watch list now, I think.
I think you can get a fairly cheap Blu-ray of it in the UK. What I want to say as well is the original ending of the script. Peter and Anne sort of turn the radio off in disgust after they hear the outbreak when they're on the boat.
Yeah.
And Anne asks Peter, what do they do next? To which he doesn't reply. And then we hear this reanimated Brian, the boyfriend of the girl who gets, her throat slashed, and beating at the door, and then it ends. So it's another downbeat ending. But I'm glad they went with the ending they went with the shuffling over Brooklyn Bridge. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a good ending, and it's one of them. I mean, I know there were two other films, weren't there? There were two other movies, which I'll only admit I've seen the second one, but I've not seen the third one. I think they're quite different. I'd have to return to them to see how different they are. But this was one of the films. So the way it ends, you just think to yourself, "Damn, I want to see the sequel."
Yeah, yeah. The Zombie Free. I have seen Zombie Free. I think Fulci only. I think Bruno Mattei done a lot of the scenes because Fulci had to be actually pulled off the film for some reason. I don't know if it was for illness or just got fired or whatever. It's different. it's different. Put it that way. It's worth a watch.
Yeah, I remember
do
watching
own 4 and 5, but I haven't seen them.
Yeah, I remember watching the second one years ago. I really don't remember much about it though. I remember the zombies running. I may be wrong here, but I'm pretty certain the zombies ran.
Yeah, they do.
So it's a completely different beast to
I think
the
they even
79
swim.
film. Probably, yeah, just ridiculous. So yeah, it just with the way this film ends, it does kind of scream for kind of an official sequel. But you know, it's just one of them zombie. I mean, it's confusing. I think for some people, the fact that it was called Zombie 2. People were like, hang on a sec, this has got no connection to Dawn of the Dead or anything like that. But it was merely used, wasn't it, as a selling point.
Yeah, I think Dawn of the Dead came out a few months before, but from what I have read up on it, this film was actually written before
it was.
Dawn of the Dead was actually released.
Yeah, it was. Fulci nor Romero, they had absolutely no idea that this title was even being used. They didn't give their permission for this to be called Zombie 2.
That's right, yeah.
You know, and obviously, I think with Fulci, because of the violent content of a lot of his films, you know, a lot of them were cut, weren't they? A lot of them were actually edited and that to try and get R ratings.
Yeah, and I think that's where us in the UK, you know, suffered a lot because that every film, I don't know if you can remember as far back as myself, but every film you had, you know, House by the Cemetery, they were all cut, and they were all, you know, you had to go basically on the black market to get these uncut at one stage.
Yeah. Now I know I haven't. Some of these Fulci films, I've seen the majority of his films, but some of these films I've not seen for a while. But from what I understand as well, quite a few of his horror films had an injury to the eye in many of his. Now, I know in the New York Ripper, released in 82, there is I mean, that film is brutal. I mean, that film is, certainly one of his most brutal, if not most. The scene in which the woman's eyeball gets cut with a razor blade.
Yeah, he did have a history with eye violence in films. It was kind of one of the things he'd done.
Yeah.
I don't know where that all stems from. Maybe it was, you know, purely
Well, I think it really makes you shudder, for one. Your eyeball is just like such a kind of sensitive part of the body, and it's just really their shock value. I mean, that really does the job. A lot of people I know don't like there being a focus on eyes, whether it's a horrific act to the eye or just a close-up of the eyeball itself. Black Christmas, you mentioned before, creepy scene with his eyeball.
Yeah, when he's in the wardrobe or whatever.
Yeah.
But funny enough, on the eyeball scene with this film, Olga Kalatos, she actually broke down crying straight after the scene with a splinter in the eye.
Oh, right.
And I don't know if that was because it was getting too close, or maybe just the actual, you know, getting into, you know, focus with the film, and maybe she took it a bit, you know, on a bit too easily. Yeah. But she totally broke down, apparently, crying and that.
He wasn't like Fulci wasn't like a Hitchcock, though, wasn't he? He wasn't like somebody that... Because I've never really read too much about Fulci's kind of behind the scenes and everything. Was he someone... I know you said... I mean, we can't really speak ill of the dead or anything like that, but was Fulci... was he quite bullyish on set?
Yeah, and it was usually to people who were quite, you know, say, timid and wouldn't answer back.
Okay.
He sort of picked on them. There's a story on a couple of his older films. He picked on the wrong person at one film. They answered him back, and then they remained friends then because they had the balls to take him up on it.
Yeah.
But Yeah, that's why he picked on a lot of women. He was known as a misogynist, and
Mm.
you either loved him or hated him. That was the general vibe to it, you
Yeah.
know.
Well,
And I think he had a lot of problems during this filming as well. With he was starting to become ill at the time. He was a
yeah.
very heavy gambler,
Mm.
heavy drinker. So there's all those factors as well.
Yeah, I think he actually passed away in I think it was '96. So yeah, he's been dead for some time now, Fulci. But you know his legacy lives on. He certainly does have a big fan base out there, and
Yeah, we would not have got if it hadn't have been for Castellero putting him forward to this film. We would not have got House by the Cemetery, The Beyond, City of Living Dead. It's not worth thinking about because this film is, in terms of that, this is possibly one of the most important films of the Italian horror film industry.
yeah, oh yeah, I would certainly agree. Yeah, it's one of my personal favourite zombie films. Like I said, Night of the Living Dead still my favourite. Just the influence that movie had, and as you know, I've probably said to you many times before, I'm a huge fan of black and white. Just black and white to me has a real purity to it, and I have a soft spot for Night of the Living Dead because it's one of the first horror films I ever saw as a kid, and it absolutely terrified me. Now, the Zombie Flesh Eaters I did have on DVD years ago. I remember watching it and really liking it, and I bought it on Blu-ray. Quite recently, actually, and I've actually kind of been tempted in getting the zombie from the cemetery bust. You can actually get a bust of him.
Oh, really?
Which looks pretty cool. I don't know what kind of price it goes for in that, but yeah, overall, I think it's one of Fulci's very best films. Good zombie film, and it has, I think, certainly from the kind of golden age of zombie films and that. I think it has, aside from maybe Day of the Dead, because I know you love Day of the Dead, don't you?
I would say that's my favourite zombie film of all time. But the three Fulci films I mentioned earlier, I would put above this.
Yeah.
But that's by no means, saying that this is a bad film or anything. I love this film as well. So I just think it's I don't know. It's just gone up in my estimation since I've rewatched it the last couple of nights. Yeah. This film it's fantastic in every way. Every way.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it for today. I think we're gonna shuffle away and leave you. For
get some caffeine
for this episode and that. Hopefully, I'm not gonna have Rick Grimes, on the lookout for me or anything like that. But yeah, thanks a lot to everyone that listened, and just a few shout outs and that here. There's Zoe Crawford, who actually does film reviews on YouTube. There's Matt Facci, Facci Monster, I believe it's called, also on YouTube. There's also Entertainment Talk, courtesy of my friend Matt Nemeth. He's also, that's actually a website, but YouTube also, I believe. And there's also Tales from the Podcast with my mate Justin, and that's worth checking out if you're a big Tales from the Crypt fan. And also, there's a fan-made film called Halloween Evil, which is actually coming out. Halloween Evil Lives, worth checking out. Valentine Bluffs, which is actually going to act as a My Bloody Valentine sequel, a fan-made film scheduled for later this year. And also a good friend of mine, Matthew Barnett, his channel called The Horror Theme is certainly worth checking out too. So that's it for today. Thanks a lot to everyone that listened, and I'll be back again soon to haunt you and torment you. Take care.